The U.S.-Israeli widening war with Iran, and nations outside the region are struggling to evacuate hundreds of thousands of their citizens from countries now in the line of fire. Of course, Italy is doing so. The United States, not. They weren't even prepared. Wait till we show you what Secretary of State Marco Rubio said. The Israeli and U.S. bombardment of Iran continued as Iran's retaliatory missile and drone barrage at Gulf nations intensified. Israeli forces reportedly pushed into Lebanon to halt Hezbollah rocket fire. During today's bilateral meeting with the German Chancellor, ABC News' Rachel Scott asked Donald Trump why the U.S. struck first when they were in the middle of an actual negotiation with Iran and other regional countries.
Mr. President, did Israel force your hand to launch these strikes against Iran? Did Netanyahu pull the United States into this war?
No, I might have forced their hand. You see, we were having negotiations with these lunatics, and it was my opinion that they were going to attack first. They were going to attack. If we didn't do it, they were going to attack first. I felt strongly about that. And we have great negotiators, great people that do this very successfully and have done it all their lives very successful. And based on the way the negotiation was going, I think they were going to attack first. And I didn't want that to happen. So if anything, I might have forced Israel's hand. But Israel was ready and we were ready, and we've had a very, very powerful impact because virtually everything they have has been knocked out now. Their missile count is going way down. Amazingly, they're hitting countries that were, let's call them neutral, right? They lived together for a long time. I think they were surprised. I was surprised. And now those countries are all fighting against them and fighting strongly against them. Someday they'll write a story and they'll say why they did that. But they hit countries that had nothing to do with what's going on. They were sort of leaving everything alone. All of a sudden they had missiles shot in, which shows you the level of evil that we're dealing with. They'll hit people that were actually at least somewhat friendly, and they had no problems with it. Also hitting only civilian places, hotels and apartment buildings, and we're hitting them where it is much more appropriate. We're hitting them very hard. And the big scale hitting goes now. They no longer have air protection. They no longer have any detection facilities at all left. And so they're gonna be in for a lot of hurt. These are bad people. These are people that killed. I guess it's 35,000. It's coming out 35,000 over the last 3 weeks. Protesters, 35,000 violently killed. So these are bad people, and the leader of the pack is gone. And as you know, 49 people were taken out in the first hit, and I guess there was another hit today on the new leadership, and it looks like that was pretty substantial also.
Okay, House Democrat leader Hakeem Jeffries blasted Donald Trump for spending taxpayer dollars to launch foreign wars instead of making life more affordable for Americans.
On the campaign trail, Donald Trump and Republicans promised not to get the American people into endless, failed, foreign, forever wars. And yet Donald Trump has just gotten America into an endless war that he acknowledges and plans to be endless, as was the case earlier today. And we've already tragically lost the lives of 6 American service members because Donald Trump, without justification and without coming to Congress, has gotten America into a Middle Eastern war that we know will not end well based on what we've already seen in Afghanistan, in Iraq, and for that matter, in Vietnam as well. Donald Trump and Republicans have consistently lied to the American people over and over and over again on matters related to both domestic and foreign policy. These extremists have been a complete and total disaster. They have consistently failed the American people. And Democrats are here to offer a better path forward.
Folks, here's how insane this is. Other countries are literally airlifting their people out. Even though you have airspace restrictions, you saw the video on social media of Italians really excited about it. You got so many people who are trapped. I saw the story of these live golfers are trapped there. They can't get to a tournament in Hong Kong, so many others. And so it's not like folks weren't prepared for this. Well, then again, they weren't, because Donald Trump is so dumb. And when you just decide to go, well, what the hell, we're just going to go ahead and start bombing, then you don't properly prepare. Any real administration would have a plan of action 4, 6, 8 weeks out, 2, 3 months, and they'll be methodically removing people and getting them out of the country. No, not these fools. Here's Secretary of State Marco Rubio. Listen to this.
Was there a plan in place to evacuate Americans before the attack took place?
Well, that's the plan we're trying to carry out. The problem is, or the challenge we are facing, is airspace closures. If a country closes their airport, for example, in some cases the airports have been hit. So the airport in Kuwait was hit. So if an airport's been attacked or the airspace is closed, then we can have the planes lined up to go, but we can't get them to land because we don't have the permissions to land there. So that's the challenge. But rest assured, we are confident that we are going to be able to assist every American. As I told you, right now we have about a little over 1,500, maybe closer to 1,600 Americans requesting assistance, and we know that we're going to be able to help them. It's going to take a little time because we don't control the airspace closures. That said, there may be more people out there that need help. We need to know who you are. So please, I'm asking the media, publicize the phone numbers and the website, because we need people to call in so we have their name, we have their contact information, we have their location and their request.
All these are dumbasses. Donald Trump has been threatening for 2 or 3 months. He's been threatening Iran. If you know that the likelihood you're going to strike, what you do is you say, we're telling all Americans, you might want to leave. That's actually what you do. Yeah, not just Iran, but other countries. Because if you know how Iran is going to respond, because you have foreign policy experts, you have intelligence experts, you listen to them. But when you're Kash Patel and you fire all of your Iranian experts in the FBI because they participated in the raid against Donald Trump at Mar-a-Lago, which was their job, this is what happens. So the administration that's always yelling DEI is filled with a bunch of incompetent people who don't even know how to execute a military action. Makes no sense whatsoever. So we can go on and on and on, folks, with this, because what we're seeing is, and again, it's left and right. And so Donald Trump also, they're giving us numerous rationales as to why we're in war. Well, is it about Iraq? Is it about the people? Is it about oil? Is it about, I mean, it's like, it changes, it changes, it changes, it changes, it changes, it changes, and it's just absolutely insane. But that's what you can expect from this administration. All right, where do we go from here? What is going to happen? How do we deal with the carnage? Joining us right now is Dr. Nola Haynes. She is with the Georgetown University School of Foreign Service, joining us from D.C. So, Nola, we sat here and listened to Donald Trump. We knew Donald Trump was sitting here and he just making it up. I mean, my God, yesterday, he's at a news conference and he turns around and starts talking about the gold drapes. He executes this, they launch this, and he's down at Mar-a-Lago at a glitzy fundraiser, as opposed to where you have the seriousness of this matter. You're at the White House Situation Room and you speak to America in an address from the White House. And so for people, so before we get into other different people, explain to people this insane, precarious situation that we have with Iran a country that used to love us, but has despised us for more than 70 years?
Well, there's been a lot of back and forth. That's for sure. But the first thing I want to say, be very clear about, Roland, Donald Trump lied in that tacky Oval Office. Iran was not coming for us. How were they going to come for us? The last time I checked, they did not have intercontinental ballistic missiles. So that is a straight out lie that man told to the American public and the rest of the world.
America.
Because, can you hear me?
Yeah.
And the thing is that you know why he told that lie? Because the reporter gave Israel credit in a weird way. Like basically Israel got you into this, but Donald Trump couldn't go there. So then he told the lie that no, actually we did because Iran was going to come for us. That is not true at all. But to your point, we have had a very interesting and rocky relationship with Iran going all the way back, 40s, 50s, 70s, or multiple eras where our relationship has been strained. And this by far is one of the strongest memories in our very storied history, that it is at its most tense. And we did not have to be here.
Okay, so for the people who don't understand, Iran used to have a Democrat elected governor who loved America. Mossadegh was the prime minister. Well, when he decided to say, I think we should be getting more money back from our oil.
When he nationalized it.
Anglo-Iranian Oil. The company was called Anglo-Iranian Oil. Y'all know it today as BP. Was like, yeah, we ain't down with this. But England was not trying to actually overthrow Iran. America said, hey, we good. We'll do it for y'all. So what we did was we stirred dissent in the country, created economic conditions on the ground that led to people being pissed off. And then all of a sudden, we go in, overthrow Mossadegh. Then we install a general. He then doesn't follow our orders, so we get rid of his ass. And then we put in the Shah of Iran. He comes in, very oppressive, human rights abuses. He has these trained thugs, trained by our CIA, to repress the country. He leads from the early 50s through 1979. 1979, we have the Iran hostage crisis. The problem, Nola, is in the United States, we only frame Iran from 1979 forward. None of these networks. I remember being on CNN and Michael Ware was having a conversation with Christiane Amanpour, and I was waiting to go on, and I'm listening to them discuss Iran, and I was like, yo, is anybody going to talk about Mossadegh in 1953? So we only tell Americans that the Iranians, they're awful, they're bad people. They took over our embassy in 79, but we never want to talk about 1953.
I mean, I agree with that, but I actually don't think it matters, because in Trump's America, truth doesn't matter. Facts doesn't matter, and history definitely doesn't matter.
Here's why it matters. It matters because when you have framed this as they hate us, they want to tear our country.
No, I wasn't done. No, I agree.
Yes. So I think it does matter. We know MAGA ain't smart, but I just believe that the problem in America is we don't like hearing the real story of our foreign policy around the world and how we have contributed to a lot of this stuff because of our actions, which oftentimes comes back to oil and money.
But I think a lot of Americans do know that. 1 in 5 Americans are only buying this story. I mean, to say that for the last 47 years that Iran's been killing Americans, that's just categorically untrue, and it's false. And I'm not saying every American knows that. And I'm not saying that every American knows the details of our relationship with Iran. But to some degree, from what I'm hearing from people, is they do understand that we have not been, quote unquote, at war with Iran for the last 47 years, because to your point, they decided that they don't like the supreme leader who has been the leader for the last 46, 47 years and has been an oppressive leader. So to your point, that is the narrative in which they are going with. But from what I'm seeing, Americans aren't really buying it.
Yeah, well, first of all, let's be real clear. When you look at the polling data, one of the reasons why Americans are not buying this war is because Donald Trump ran on 2016, 2020, 2024.
No more wars.
No new wars, no new wars. We should stop spending all this money fighting wars. Then he also said, we got the tweets and everything else. Oh, Obama, when he's going to be in trouble with poll numbers, he's going to bomb Iran. Joe Biden's going to bomb Iran. And guess what? Conservatives are ripping him. Donald Trump is now firing back at Megyn Kelly, firing back at Tucker Carlson. Charlie Kirk was also speaking against this here. And so he created on the right. And remember, you have people like, oh my God, you had all these progressives who were saying, my God, Donald Trump is more of a dove than Biden and Kamala Harris. And now all of a sudden we see what is going on here. And so that's contributing to this, but also the shifting rationale as to why in the hell we were doing it. We were in the middle of a negotiation. Let's talk about that because Obama negotiated a deal. Obama negotiated a deal when it came to Iran's nuclear program. Trump's like, deal sucked. I'm tearing it apart. So he was negotiating a new one, which was essentially same as the old one. And according to officials in Iran agreed with all of America's conditions. And he was like, no, we're going to listen to Netanyahu and we're going to blow their ass up.
Right. So last year when I broke the news on your show that the United States was going to attack Iran, I talked about JCPOA quite a bit. And JCPOA stands for Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, which is also known as the Iran nuclear deal. We do not have to be here. We do not have to be here. I need people to really understand that. This is a fabricated situation. To what ends? I mean, there are a lot of speculations, but there's one point that I need people to understand. China is an interesting factor here, Roland, because Iran and China have a 25-year trade and security agreement that they signed in 2021. And while right now China and Russia are kind of playing it back a little bit, they are the ones who are offering up surveillance to Iran. It's a reason why they know where U.S. military and civilian assets are in other Emirates and Gulf states. So this is a very interesting part of this, where China is stepping in to fill in that diplomatic void that we've abdicated. You are also now having to factor them into the global response. And that part of it is going to be very interesting. So you have the situation where, as you opened up, you have Gulf states, you have, Emirates waking up to 5-star hotels in Dubai being bombed. Didn't nobody want that. It did not have to happen, right? And now you have Europe trying to figure out how they're going to move. Now you have Gulf states trying to figure out how they are going to move. And right now it looks like they are giving the United States assistance, but let's be clear, because they don't want the drama in their own sovereign territories. That all that lying that Donald Trump did in the tacky Oval Office when he was talking about, they're partnering with us now and all these different things. He's making it seem like everybody's on board because they agree with what he and Netanyahu has set out to do. That is not the situation. What Trump and Netanyahu has done is put everybody in a situation no one needed to be in. And let's not even get to the point of we may not even have enough ammunition for Trump's forever war or whatever kind of version of war he wants this to be.
Well, one of the things that I find to be very interesting, and again, so let me preface this by folks who will sit here and go, oh my God, are you pulling for Iran? No. If you're Iran, you know strategically, and when it comes to the military, the might of the United States. You understand that. But we can go back to Vietnam of what happens when we have might, but we face a country that operates with different tactics. So
absolutely,
what Iran does, first of all, Iran is firing missiles at U.S. air bases in these surrounding countries. So they are harming places where America could be releasing assets. America is pissed off because Spain said, nah, y'all can't use our stuff. Donald Trump literally said today, we can do whatever we want. No, you actually can't. You just can't just say, we're just going to land at a base that's controlled by Spain or the UK or the French. No, you got to get permission.
The entire international system
you even
was
have
built
to get,
constrain a Hitler Trump.
Right. You even have to get permission to use another country's airspace. So this arrogant, I'm a king, can do whatever I want, he's now realized, no, you can't. And those countries, to your point there, those countries have relationships with even countries like Iran when it comes to oil, when it comes to resources. So they ain't always rolling with us.
No, absolutely not. And I've been waiting for the Strait of Hormuz to close, which it actually is. And while we don't get oil,
hold on, no, don't run past that. Explain to the audience what the Strait of Hormuz is and why that's huge.
Well, I was getting to it, Roland.
Well, yeah, but you just mentioned it. You got to explain it. So my job is to make it for the people who don't talk this stuff every day. So before you make the point,
I was going to explain it because I've been explaining it.
Well,
so
let's
let
go.
me finish explaining.
Let's go.
The Strait of Hormuz, which is responsible for about 45% of the world's gas and oil that passes through the Strait of Hormuz. Okay. Now, why is this important for the United States, considering that our largest oil partner is Canada? It matters because what happens around the world also affects us too. So China is Iran's number one trading partner, China, Russia. And so if we are messing with them, with their economic bottom line, you best believe they are going to figure out a way for us to feel that pain too. So when you open this up, you talked about the stock market and you talked about rising gas prices. And when people ask me all the time, why does foreign policy matter? This absolutely matters for your kitchen table. This matters for your bank account because everything is going to shoot up. And in terms of price. So the Strait of Hormuz is really important in all of this in terms of imports and exports. And let me be clear, Iran is taking an economic hit here too, because they get a lot of their money from exports. And so by them closing it and saying anyone who passes this boundary, you're going to get the business, that means that they are dug in, Roland. They are willing to take the financial hit. They are willing to take the military hits. And they warned the United States, y'all come for us, we will come for you. And to your point about the arrogance, we did not listen.
Again, for the people who don't understand, because again, I think it's, let's just be clear, a lot of folk don't live and breathe this stuff every day. Just same thing with the Panama Canal. It's called the Panama Canal because controlled by Panama. When we talk about the Strait of Hormuz, the reality is that is in, hold on, let me pull it up here because I want people to actually see this so we can understand the role that Iran plays in this. And so it's a waterway. Go to my iPad. So folks, you'll see this here. So the Strait of Hormuz, Iran is controlling that. I'm sorry, it's basically in their country. And so if they shut it down, ain't nothing getting through. Like
exactly.
You're not going around and ain't nothing getting through. And what we also are dealing with, I saw something the other day. This guy was breaking down why the attacks on the airports are important. Because he talked about even Dubai and those airports, they handle 127 million passengers. They're the air gateway from Middle East to European countries as well. Africa. So Iran, being again smart tactically, by attacking the Dubai airport, by attacking these other countries, they are now impacting other nations around the world by this action because they've been canceling flights left and right. So now all of a sudden, people are stranded there. Now they can't do business in these places. So now other countries are going, yo, U.S., Israel, when this going to shut in? Because you're now messing up our economy and now you're impacting global economics. And now you have global instability.
Absolutely. And that's the real that's the real point of all of this. That's called strategy. Something that the United States didn't have, that same sort of arrogance, that they went in last June and it lasted about 12 days and they were patting themselves on the back and they said, job done, job accomplished. And then they tried to run it back again, the same play. And now they are getting resistance because you are messing with people's bottom line. You are messing with global economics. So when the strait being closed, yes, we're talking about oil and gas that can't get through, but we're also talking about some luxury items. So why is that important? Because largely a lot of rich folk haven't felt the impact of Trumpism. What they have experienced is making a lot of money, on the stock market. But now it's a different situation. Now you're talking about, countries' GDP being impacted. We're talking about rich people maybe not being able to get their luxury goods that they love because the Strait of Hormuz is closed. So you're not just talking about how bad Trump policy impacts poor and working class people. Now we're getting to the people with money, and now the situation is going to change because it's affecting them.
I want to bring in my panel right now for the questions. Dr. Mustafa Santiago Ali, former senior advisor for environmental justice at the EPA, joining us from D.C. Joe Richardson, civil rights attorney out of Los Angeles. Mateo, the justice guy, legal and political analyst out of D.C. as well. Mustafa, your question for Nola.
Hey, Nola, it's good to see you. You also referenced early on about the economic impacts. And I think sometimes folks forget how much it costs for these missiles and jets and the cost of just operating them just for a few hours. Could you just expand a little bit on how those costs are actually going to come back home and how significant they actually are?
The boomerang effect is about to be stupid. Okay, like the foreign policy, the bad foreign policy is going to come back on us domestically in a way that I genuinely worry about. It costs hundreds of millions of dollars a day for this kind of military bombardment. And we have a lot of new tech out there. I don't know this to be true, but I have seen reporting that hypersonic missiles are on the battlefield. And if that is true, that is bananas. Drones are, Ukraine kind of perfected this technology with making low-cost drones that are very effective to the point where they can destroy tanks. Now, drones are a technology that can be relatively inexpensive, but we are using a mix of different type of ammunitions. And all of that is incredibly expensive, to say nothing if we actually do deploy people in country. That's another layer of expense. And so this is going to be compounded. And once again, it's going to be on the backs of Americans to have to pay this bill for Trump and Netanyahu's war.
So that point there, Nola, is, like, people need to understand, the drones costing them $50,000. The bomb is costing us $1.2 million. Mm-hmm. And then I saw this one interaction. We fired 3 weapons to take down 1 drone. So in that instance, it cost us $3.8, almost $4 million to take out a $50,000 drone. And as some estimates from intelligence says, Iran has up to 80,000 drones.
And not to mention the F-15s that supposedly were shot down by friendly fire. I don't know about that. So we have F-15s that are crashing in the Middle East. So that is an enormous cost. And then also, what are we doing to protect our technology inside of those planes when they go down? So the costs are exponential. And because this administration doesn't understand the word strategy, we don't know what the end goal is. We don't know just exactly how long Trump is planning whatever it is him and Netanyahu are up to. Personally, I think part of this is about wanting to crown Netanyahu king of the Middle East, but that ain't gonna happen.
Now, of course, Trump is claiming, this is the New York Times, go to my iPad. Trump says strikes kill Iranians the U.S. saw as new leaders. Well, we'll see if that's actually real or not. Mateo, your question.
First of all, thank you for all the information you've shared. I wanted to talk about Rubio's, preemptive comment today, which is a, clearly doesn't stand the international legal test. But I also wanted to frame this or help us frame this from a geopolitical perspective. This idea that the strike was preemptive and unplanned kind of made all of the European countries step aside. There was no coordination. There are two issues here that I think the European communities, the European governments are handling. On one side, the strike is internationally legal. On the other side, they know that Iran is the greatest sponsor of international terrorism in the world, and so they don't want to be put basically a target on the back of their citizens. So from a geopolitical perspective, how do you think this will play out in the relationship between Trump and the rest of the EU, both in terms of this war and overall?
Well, that's a good question. International law and norms, that's important. Not only did Trump not go to Congress, last I checked, no one showed up at the UN Security Council asking for, permission for this war. So what I think will happen is the world, the international system is really understanding what's at stake now. There's a reason why I brought up why this entire system was built in the first place. It really was built to constrain a Hitler, to constrain a Trump, a leader who is absolutely out of control and unilaterally making decisions to go to war. So now what I am seeing is more of a serious conversation about constraint and what that means in a more fractured environment where the United States isn't leading the way that it once did. So some of what's happening in the background is Europe is actually trying to figure out, okay, who is going to step into this vacuum? Who's going to step into this power vacuum? And what is that going to look like? Right. So it's a lot of rethinking, reshifting, reorganizing, because right now the international system that was built is not working. Trump and Netanyahu are not constrained.
Joe?
Dr. Haynes, it's good to see you. I wonder, let's hypothetically say that this happened as it does, and somehow we get lucky and wake up one morning and Donald Trump is no longer president. And so there's a new leadership team, including Secretary of State or whatever else. And what would you do? Because it's very easy for us to talk about all of the things that they're doing wrong. But what happens because one day somebody's going to have to pick up the pieces here, right? One day, whether it's 3 years from now, it's not clear that this is going to be short, hit it and quit it, stick and move like Sugar Ray Leonard. No, this is probably going to last a while, and it's certainly going to have some effects. So guide us through a bit, if you can, as to what someone that is involved in this situation from a leadership standpoint that really wants to assess and do what's right, what's practical, what's pragmatic on some level, but what's best for our long-term interests. Can you start to guide us a little bit in terms of what that might look like?
Are you asking what happens after Trump? And if the situation is still ongoing?
Yeah, that's the short of it, right? What happens after somebody that really wants to be responsible about landing the plane in this situation has an opportunity to do so?
I think first and foremost, listen, I come to this work, international security and arms control, that's just not a title. That's an actual job. I am an arms control expert. And so I heavily believe in things like JCPOA. I think this is an opportunity for arms control to come back in, to bring people back to the negotiating table. The United States is going to have to pick up our diplomacy chops where we have failed during, the Trump years. So I want to start there. I want to start with letting people around the world know that we are very serious about diplomacy first versus a deterrence first posture. And is it going to be costly for us? Are we going to have to eat crow? Absolutely. But the starting point is diplomacy, and then negotiation, and then coming back to the table to reconvene things like JCPOA, New START. So that is where I see opportunity, is coming back to the negotiating table and diplomacy.
For the people who don't know, what is JCPOA?
The Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, also known as the Iran nuclear deal.
Gotcha. All right. The other piece is this here. and that is we talk about how long it lasts. The United States. I'm gonna go back to Donald Rumsfeld in Iraq. The United States often sells these wars as, and this is all because of really the aftermath of Vietnam. Quick, decisive, not weeks but days, because they know the longer it goes on, Americans are like, what we doing? What we doing? How much does it cost? Then when the human capital increases. But this case, Iran is also paying attention by saying, hey, if we can drive up the economic crisis, you already have an economic problem in America. You all of a sudden, you ain't gonna have Donald Trump yelling gas under $2, which is already a lie. You're gonna say gas $3, $4, $5. Goods going up. They understand the American people have no appetite for a high cost of another war.
Absolutely. We don't have an appetite for it, nor do we have an appetite for seeing an all-girls school being blown up in South Iran. We don't have an appetite for seeing more dead children. We don't have an appetite for spending money on wars that we cannot afford. I mean, meat in this country, you pretty much have to be a millionaire to afford a decent piece of meat in this country. And we are talking about a made-up war to possibly make Israel the hegemon. Is that what we're doing? How is that America first? And the way they are twisting themselves into knots to make this America first, talking about people mess with us, then, we're going to show them. Go sit down. Nobody is buying that tired, weak spin. Nobody is buying it. And to your point, Roland, in June, this situation lasted 12 days, right? And Donald Trump keeps going back and forth, back and forth. There's something about him wanting Americans in country, American soldiers in country. He keeps talking about it. And when you have someone in charge who's never served and you think it's cool to put on a jacket and to, give orders like the military or G.I. Joe action figures, he makes statements that is indicative of someone who has never put on a uniform. And not only that, for someone who purposely did not put on a uniform. So he's playing with people's lives. He's playing with people's kitchen tables, with people's bank accounts, because he wants to feel puffed up and important and possibly make his friend more powerful in his region and possibly wanting to run that play in the Western Hemisphere, which is what all this Greenland and Canada and Mexico conversation is about. It all connects. It all relates.
A couple of more points here.
Afghanistan and Pakistan are at war too, just FYI.
A couple of more points here before we go. Folks, Benjamin Netanyahu, Prime Minister of Israel, do understand, and CNN put this compilation together of how long he has been saying Iran is around the corner from having a nuclear weapon. He's literally been saying this for 30 years. Listen, y'all.
30 years.
Listen.
Deadline for attaining this goal is getting extremely close. And Iran, by the way, is also outpacing Iraq in the development of ballistic missile systems that they hope will reach the eastern seaboard of the United States within 15 years. By next spring, at most, by next summer, at current enrichment rates, they will have finished the medium enrichment and move on to the final stage. From there, it's only a few months, possibly a few weeks, before they get enough enriched uranium for the first bomb. The foremost sponsor of global terrorism could be weeks away from having enough enriched uranium for an entire arsenal of nuclear weapons. That would place a militant Islamic terror regime weeks away from having the fissile material for an entire arsenal of nuclear bombs.
Now, it's obvious that Israel does not want Iran to have a nuclear bomb.
Mm-hmm.
But Israel has a nuclear bomb. And what's crazy is Israel has never
report it.
Not just in the report. Israel has never disclosed it. The United States acts like, oh, we don't know if they have one, when we know they do. And one of the reasons countries want a nuclear bomb, it's also a deterrent to other countries not invading you. For instance, India, Pakistan, because they have nuclear weapons, we treat them differently. Many people have said Gaddafi's biggest mistake was agreeing to the United States and giving up his nuclear program. They said the moment many experts say the moment Gaddafi did that, in addition to trying to unite African countries and have a one currency for the continent, and it wasn't going to be what France wanted or the United States, is that the moment he gave up his nuclear program, that's when the U.S. said, oh, we could take his ass out. Because the fear always was, if we strike Gaddafi, he could retaliate with his nuclear program. And so that's also what's at play here.
Absolutely. The same could be said about Ukraine. You know, they gave up their capabilities too. And hindsight is always 20/20, and they're wondering, you know, was that the right decision? But, you know, and France, you know, there's reporting that France is actually stepping up their nuclear program. So again, the way that this is impacting the global system, not just economically, but we're talking about global security is going to be forever altered by what happened this time with Iran, because Donald Trump and Netanyahu, they are acting unilaterally as if they are crown kings of the world. And the international system is seeing this. They're seeing this with a host of other things, and they are thinking about their security in a way that they haven't thought about for a very long time. And we could be entering some new phase of an arms race. I mean, we definitely are talking about that already in the space sector, but, you know, terrestrially, we are now entering another phase of this, and we are moving in the wrong direction, Roland. This is not the direction in terms of proliferation that we want to be moving in.
All right, Dr. Nola Haynes, we appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Folks.